In this section of my presentation, I will be demonstrating that I know how to create and maintain effective environments for student learning. The first thing you'll see is a set of my classroom rules. They are fairly broad. I like to think of them more as principles, not rules. And that way, you know, if there is a behavior that doesn't fall under one of the specific rules, I can adapt the principles as needed. My next slide focuses on classroom procedures. My routines are fairly similar to the Fortune model. I have the equivalent of a do now. I don't actually call it that. Since I am teaching English and algebra, I handle each of those a little bit differently. So for English, it's always or almost always a writing prompt. And almost always, occasionally this isn't true, but it almost always leads directly into the lesson for the day or is related to the focus of the week, or usually I try to break my lessons up into week-long segments. For algebra, I usually do spiraling. So I'll reteach, I'll review something that we learned a couple days before, because I find that long-term retention for students with learning disabilities is a huge challenge. So going back to things is really important. In terms of reward systems, you know, sometimes I will do kind of an impromptu oral quiz. I might, you know, throw starburst to people who get the correct answers. I also have a hangman game. That's sort of my primary reward system for the class. And if the class on the whole has a pretty good productive period, I let them make a guess on their hangman game. Once they've guessed their word, then I bring in you know, a treat. It could be pizza or, you know, donuts, whatever. And then finally, on Fridays, I do something called Above and Beyond, and I recognize one student in each of my classes. And it could be for anything. You know, it could be academic, could be behavior, it could be helping someone out. Sometimes it could be something that you know, they did something that I think really models a behavior or a strategy I want the other students to be aware of and to utilize. My consequences, I'm not a big punitive guy. You'll see sort of the breakdown of how I deal with behavior. Usually I just try to make eye contact first, let the student know that way that what they're doing is inappropriate. I'll narrate the positive so that people who are not engaging in the positive hopefully will catch on. Eventually, sometimes I have to be more direct and address the student directly or address the behavior directly out loud. And then, you know, I'll call home, and sort of my last resort is writing referrals or sending kids out of the room. I'm very anti sending kids out of the room because I don't think they benefit from it. I think I've only written one referral in 2 years so far. Under the next slide, you'll see my classroom layout. It's sort of a horseshoe. I have my para in the opposite corner to me, and I have sort of 3 clusters of desks. This works out nicely for a couple of reasons. I feel like I can see everyone really clearly this way. It also leaves a big space in the middle of the room for presentations. We do a lot of those. I really make the kids do a lot of public speaking. We do vocab skits, that sort of thing. And then also the little groups of desks function nicely for group work, you know, small group work. And then on the last page, you'll see a few pictures from my classroom. You can see the Wall of Fame. That's where I put student work that really impressed me. You'll also see the vocabulary words. We keep those up, and I try to spiral those back in, use them when I am lecturing or when I'm responding to a student question. Lots of posters on grammar, roots, affixes, proofreading marks, all that sort of thing. I believe there's also a picture of the writing journal. So each student gets a writing journal in my ELA classes, and those are what they write their responses to the prompts in each day.